Greetings, this is Chris Rubin, the Nostalgic Catholic, and I have another Isaac Asimov short story. This one has been included in a volume called Once Upon a Time, A Treasury of Modern Fairy Tales, edited by Lester Del Rey and Risa Kessler, and illustrated by Michael Pangrazio. We'll get back to that. Okay. So these are stories about dragons and princesses and fairy godmothers and other fairies and elves and unicorns and all the kinds of characters you find in normal fairy tales. It kind of introduces that. It also has kind of a neat thing here. It's got a little bit about the authors way at the back. So here's what it says about Isaac Asimov. It says, Isaac Asimov was born in the Soviet Union to his great surprise. He moved quickly to correct the situation. When his parents emigrated to the United States, Isaac, 3 years old at the time, stowed away in their baggage. He has been an American citizen since the age of 8. Brought up in Brooklyn and educated in its public schools, he eventually found his way to Columbia University and, over the protests of the school administration, managed to annex a series of degrees in chemistry up to and including a PhD. He then infiltrated Boston University and climbed the academic ladder, ignoring all cries of outrage, until he found himself professor of biochemistry. Meanwhile, at the age of 9, he found the love of his life, in the inanimate sense, when he discovered his first science fiction magazine. By the time he was 11, he began writing stories, and at 18, he actually worked up the nerve to submit one. It was rejected. After 4 long months of tribulations and suffering, he sold his first story and, thereafter, never looked back. If you've been following this whole series, we have followed those stories fairly closely. What was left except quantity? At the present time, he has published over 340 books and shows no signs of slowing up. He is married to Janet Jepson, psychiatrist and writer, has 2 children by a previous marriage, and lives in New York City. Yeah, sadly, Lugerman, she was a smoker. That was kind of hard. I don't think she had a whole lot of interest. It has little blurbs on each of the different authors that have little stories. You get 10, as it turns out. So, the authors are, starting with Asimov, Terry Brooks, C.J. Cherry, Lester Del Rey, Susan Dexter, Waylon Drew, Barbara Hambly, Catherine Kurtz, Anne McCaffrey, and Lawrence Watt Evans. Okay. There's a forward that introduces this volume, but I'm only going to look at the little bit of it that deals with Asimov's participation in this, because it's good to get to the story. So, alright, modern writers are still carrying on the ancient task of preserving the magic and myths, but their stories are now written to be read and done with skills unknown of old, and readers are still reading and buying their fantasy novels, sometimes hundreds of thousands of copies of such a novel. When we decided to do this book, we called upon the best of these fantasy writers. We told them we wanted real fairy stories written for sophisticated modern readers. Almost unanimously, they jumped at the chance. Isaac Asimov, not usually considered a fantasy writer, so far as we can remember, he only wrote one previous fantasy, and that not a fairy tale, almost drooled at the opportunity. His story is included here, a real fairy story, but with his own slant, of course. So, there are stories by successful writers of adult fiction, but the ancient magic of the old classic fairy tale still sounds loud and clear. The spirit of the ancient stories is still very much with us. We enjoy every one, and we hope and believe others will enjoy them as much as we did. Lester Del Rey, and Risa Kessler. So the first story included in here is called Prince Delightful and the Flameless Dragon. So we have a royal king and queen who had some difficulty having a child. They thought of adoption, and then finally the queen was pregnant. Here's a little bit of Asimovian wit. We're going to have a baby. Well, at least the queen was, but the king was a very interested bystander. So they were in their late 30s and had begun to give up hope, but finally it happened. So his eyes opened wide and he said, "How on earth did that happen?" And the queen said rather tartly that if he didn't know, no one did. Cute. So they have the child. Oh, and all the fairy godmothers are summoned in, and they're careful to make sure all of them are invited. Because we all know what happens when one of them doesn't get invited. They get angry, and then they show up anyway and do something that's kind of messy. Makes life difficult for the child. So they make sure they do all of them, even one who probably wouldn't have even held a grudge, but they included all because they didn't want to miss anybody and risk getting anybody angry at them. Misanthrope. Well, Misanthrope wants to give him grace and finesse and so forth. So, you're a graceful prince, those graceful prince that ever lived. But she dropped the wand, and when she picked it up, she held it long end towards the baby. I wonder how that didn't give her any grace. For that matter, any lack of grace all the time that she would have done it the right way. I don't know. It's like, did something go out of one end of the wand by something else coming out of the other? I don't think that ever really got sorted out. Problem is, the wrong end of the wand was pointed to the baby, and the kid's a klutz. And in one word, he's a klutz. He grows up, he lives as a klutz, and finally, he's got to go off, make his own way. I mean, properly, there's supposed to be 3 sons who go off, but there's only one, and the queen's not about to consider trying to have any more sons. So there it is. There's one son. Oh dear. I hope he makes it back alive. But he will. He's got to go off, fight his dragon, win the hand of the foreign princess, blah, blah, blah. All the usual stuff, princes always have to do in fairy tales. So they try to teach him to dance. That was he would have been better off dancing on his hands. So he goes off to a place that advertises, we still have a dragon. Dragons are becoming an endangered species, so it's getting hard to find them anymore. But he finds one kingdom that's got a dragon, and he goes there, and he decides to take on the dragon. He's clumsy, and things don't go too well. Fortunately, the dragon, when he was a baby, was given a similar the same kind of fulfillment as he'd gotten in some somewhat different area. So he couldn't even blow a flame, only a stench. So he finds out about the princess there, who seems very attractive, has a nice name, Laureline. That's kind of nice. I've heard that before. That's kind of pretty. And he consults his book, The Dragon Hunter's Handbook. And he's going to follow all the rules in it and so forth. And turns out he confronts the dragon. The dragon has no interest in fighting him per se. And they kind of talk, and as they start talking, surprise, dragons talk. So he meets up with the dragon. There is a piece of art in the book. I will show you that in a bit. So instead of killing the dragon, he decides to bring the dragon back to the king in his castle and so forth. And they're kind of like, you were supposed to kill the dragon. Well, I think this dragon could be more valuable to us alive. Do you have any foreign attackers? Well, yeah, we got this other kingdom to the east that's fighting us and pushing its way in. He says, okay, he takes the dragon out there, and the dragon, he wears a gas mask, which I guess they'd seen dragons before, but they hadn't seen gas masks. So that makes him look kind of weird and frightening. And then he has the dragon, obviously he can't make a flame, but he can make quite a stench. The dragon does that, and of course, our young Prince Delightful is in his gas mask, so it doesn't bother him. But they're all totally scattered and run back, and army defeated. So this dragon has, earned his right, earned his place in society. So he'll have all the grass he wants, or hay, or any opportunity to catch little animals if he wants to eat them, whatever he wants to do. Apparently, this dragon doesn't have much taste of eating virgin things. They smell like cheap perfume, he says. Well, okay. At any rate, so he's in a stable far removed from the palace, but he's overseen that throne room, said, and returned to his throne room, and to Prince Delightful, I admit bringing back the monster was quite a feat, but it was not what I engaged you to do. I wanted you to look at that already. So, having defeated the other army, he let's see here. You may have my beautiful and virginal daughter, Prince Delightful, said King Faraday, and since I have no son, you will inherit my kingdom when I die in the conquered land. Too. As for your dragon, he will be a hero for us as long as he wishes to remain here. We shall live on the finest hay, and we shall catch small animals for him when he feels the need for some. He would like a lady dragon or two, if he's thoughtful about that. Even that might be arranged, and so on. So, Miss Hawk had done that because she messed up the dragons. So, well, they basically live happily ever after. Now, this story, by the way, without any apparent change in the text as far as I was able to detect, is gathered up into this other Isaac Asimov volume, Magic, the equivalent or companion to the one that says Gold. So he has a number of fairy tales in here, but really, there's only two that are bona fide fairy tales. This one and another one called The Fable of the Three Princes. We covered that a number of episodes ago. And the rest of these apparently all seem to be Azazel stories. Probably concentrating on ones that weren't gathered into the Azazel book, which could therefore allow it to cover some of these stories. I don't know. At any rate, now here's the special thing I want to talk about, is the artwork. The artist here, and let me read this little blurb on the artist here. Michael Pangrazio was born in Glendale, California. At the young age of 21, he began his career as a matte and special effects painter, creating extraordinary lifelike backgrounds to be used in film. For many years, he was matte painting supervisor for Industrial Light and Magic, Lucasfilm's special effects division, and has won many awards for his work, including 2 Emmys. He now has his own special effects company in Marin, California. Remember, Industrial Light and Magic is in Marin. So, and this is the painting he did for this particular story. So you can see there's the dragon. There's our guy. All his stuff, his shield and whatnot, are on the ground because he clumsily dropped them. And there's a tree. Now, this artist is really something else. Each story has one such drawing for it. And without going into what these stories are, I'd like to present some of these others, because they're very beautiful, imaginative, and these are really something. They look so realistic, they almost look like photographs. But they're like photographs of things that don't exist, of situations that would be impossible. And yet, there they are, looking as big as life. I mean, you just have to look at this. I mean, the genius of this work. I mean, you could believe these are 2 guys on a horse in this field coming up to this castle with a bird-like thing up there. Wow. Yeah, we'll keep going. Some of these drawings are really awesome fairy tale type pictures, but oh goodness. Okay, here's another one. I'm not sure the confrontation we have here, but some sort of maybe a wizard is confronting this young girl with a interesting expression on her face. They have stuff like that, you know? But all of it, just so you could think that that's actually on a path out somewhere. And then you have this one's out in the icy frozen north. You know, story that involved a unicorn. You can see his horn. And some things here. Let's see. Ice and snow and trees and everything's kind of blue. Wow, I had to do these. I think these are just really great pictures. I mean, it's worth getting this book just to see these pictures. I mean, this art is beautiful. I haven't gone on to read all the other stories. This one was used again for the cover of the book, but it's kind of nice to get a really good look at the picture itself. See, it's on the cover as well. Alright, yeah, on the beach, they had a little fire, telling stories or something, I don't know. I haven't read the story, so I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Another one here. Strange sort of magic child or something with a green wolf-like creature that's like his pet or something. And a knight with his helmet and sword. Not much of a armor, but really they confront each other in this strange looking place. This one. I like this one too. I mean, it just looks so real. You could think this was outside somewhere in autumn. The leaves are turning color. In the foreground here, you get a little fairy. On the other side, just a squirrel. And it's just kind of there in the bushes. He's got this sort of a crown thing he's holding, like he's ready to put a crown on the head of a king. Or maybe that's a halo, or I don't know. So I'm not sure what all that is. But it certainly is a dramatic scene like you would only see in a fairy tale, whatever it is. So here's another one. Gotta have the usual winged horse and the guy with a bird on his shoulder and his faithful dog. And just a nice forested spot. And one more, I think this is the last one. Some sort of a magic spell where the face of someone appears in this sort of thing over a table and clothes. Look at that, even the shadows are realistic. Just beautiful. Those drawings are just absolutely works of art. And so this is as good for those as for the stories. At least the one we've seen by Asimov. They're pretty good too. Alright. Well, I had to have that little bonus extra. Thanks for listening.